expectation.
You say that, but people did used to follow their sat-navs and drive into rivers and canals.
Yeah, but those people should not have run businesses.
No. Yeah. Okay. Touche. I'll take. Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk, UK's #1 recruitment podcast in some capacity. There's a variety of metrics that we meet. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma, the CEO and founder of RecTools.io. That is the world's now, I suppose, only whole of market directory for recruitment suppliers. We are going global. We've got a range of products and services on there. Our client base and user base is now growing. We want to welcome our users from America, India, Singapore, Australia, and a handful of others. Apologies if I've missed you. But yeah, if you're looking for a new supplier for your recruitment business, head over to RecTools.io. It's a free to access, fully comprehensive whole of market directory. Which brings me on to my guest today. So we often talk about things like new suppliers for your back office, new suppliers for your invoice financing solutions, CRMs, websites, and so on and so forth. But I think one of the things that people, certainly nowadays, are a lot more inclined to look at changing than they used to be is their accountancy practices. My guest today is Morgan Davies, who is one of the founders and a director at Prime Accountants here in the Midlands. Morgan, thank you for taking time to come.
Thank you for having me.
So we want to talk about a whole range of stuff, and we talked off camera before we went live about sort of what we're going to cover, and there is a lot to cover. I think a good place to sort of start is you've got a handful of recruitment clients, and they're all kind of a variety of sizes and shapes and setups. How did they find the last sort of like 2023? How's that been for them by and large?
I've got about 4 or 5 recruitment clients, and they're in different sectors, each one of them. And I think it's fair to say 23 has been the worst year for most of them. The ones that are in construction, headhunting, and actually some sciences, life sciences, have really struggled for a variety of reasons. But generally speaking, the market has just been suppressed for them. One of my clients has really excelled though, and they are in recruitment for effectively the public sector. So schools and social services, and they're flying, absolutely flying. So,
and do you think that's down to the vertical that they're in, or do you think that's down to something that they were doing that maybe the others weren't, or perhaps was too slow to react to?
I think their vertical has been protective of them, because actually it was an area where there was still the spend there, and they were probably a bit niche, and there probably hasn't been enough competitors there, but they actually spotted a new market for themselves and went into it quite heavily and quite quickly, and it exceeded their expectations massively.
Brilliant. What I like about that sort of, you obviously have quite a bit of insight in terms of to what your clients are doing and stuff. And I can talk from experience I've had some. When I ran my recruitment business, I think we went through 3 accountants before we landed on the one that was right for us. And there is still that kind of element of accountants or an accountancy practice being used as just somebody to, reconcile the numbers, file the accounts, and kind of leave us to run the business, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you can probably say accountants have got 2 income streams, really. The compliance work, which is that making sure if you're a company, you do your accounts under the Companies Act, you do your corporation tax, you then do the personal tax returns for the business owners, directors, etc. And you're just meeting the requirements. And actually it's the requirements of somebody else, it's the requirements of Companies House and HMRC really, and the directors to do the bare minimum to make sure they're not going to get themselves into trouble. And that is the core business of most accountants. However, the best accountants will use that information, that data, that relationship to then get to know the business owners personally as well as professionally. And then if you know the ambitions, the goals, just the personalities of people, you can then actually give great advisory support as well. And it's that advisory support, that added value, that really helps kick on in terms of the client's performance. And there's no, honestly, this might sound a little bit arrogant or cocky, but the clients I spend the most time with tend to be the most successful ones. Now, I'm no
expert. Picking them out.
Possibly, but I'm no expert in their field.
These guys are going somewhere. I need to do work for them.
There is a bit of that. But because they're good at what they do, what they can concentrate then on is doing that and leaving the stuff they're not so good at, the stuff they're not so interested in, to the experts, and it frees up more of their time. Whereas the clients that actually spend less time with us and less spend of us tend to be poorer performers.
Well, they're out on their own sort of thing, aren't they? They're not using you for everything that you can provide. It's literally just, here's a bag of receipts and kind of do what you need to do.
Exactly that. And they don't see the value in that. So therefore, they miss out on the potential value in that advice and that relationship side of it. And that's where, not every 5 minutes you'll say something, here you go, do this, that's going to save you 5% of tax or whatever it's going to be. But it's actually just understanding when the opportunity does arise, it's kind of, Joe Bloggs, he's in that area. I'll have a quick chat with him because there's an opportunity there for him. But if you didn't know them well enough, you probably wouldn't think about them.
No, we were speaking off camera about things like the SEIS and the tax benefits of that, and me not realising any of that, because actually, I'm probably guilty of that. I didn't really use my accountants when we had the recruitment business. I left my business partner to deal with that sort of stuff, because it just wasn't of interest to me. Whereas now, where I'm at with kind of the projects that I'm running now, essentially using what a service you're already paying for, but in a better capacity, right? In the, you can act as a fractional CFO for a business. You might just be a 3 to 5 person business now, but by having those controls in place and those measures in place and running things like board meetings and asking your accountant to spend, can you come and spend an hour or 2 hours in a month with us and go through management accounts and board packs and stuff like that, you start to almost create that and formulate that structure of operating in a bigger business mentality, right? Yeah,
you become part of their team and you can add value as part of their team.
So why do you think people don't do it as much then?
I think it works two ways, doesn't it, really? So I think there's enough accountants out there, just compliance people. And they might get to be business owners, they might have their small practices. And what they'll do is they'll go to the, probably, shall we say, the bottom of the market, effectively, to...
the quick wins.
Exactly, I'll compete by low price.
Low hanging fruit.
And then the clients that they attract, they then that's what's attracted them.
You're not sitting down with a self-employed plumber and talking about, right, how we're going to expand this across the nation, aren't you?
Really? No, exactly. But it's interesting that the recruitment firm that has the most successful 2023 that I just talked about, they came to see me when they started business, not at the end of their first year. Right. So actually, before they started trade, I got introduced by a bank manager. They'd gone to see the bank first. The bank manager was putting in an invoice discounting facility for them. So they're doing a lot of temp work. So they needed the cash flow. And they recommended to come and see me. I sat down with them actually in our Solihull office as it was. And we set them up from the start, how to operate effectively, how to look after their finances. We helped them with setting up the right accounting software. We actually did outsource bookkeeping and management accounts to them. So all along, they had the finances from the start. So it's actually, they started off with best practice and good practice as well, good behaviours. And it's no surprise that they're the ones that I know actually, they've probably been going 10 years, but their turnover now in excess of £20 million.
Amazing.
It's a fantastic story, making good money. And, the sort of people that... I've been with them since the start.
It's the old cliche, start as you mean to go on, isn't it? You can't be like, when I'm this size, then I'll take it more seriously, or when we hit these numbers, then, because we have this in recruitment and recruitment business owners, and you would have seen this in other sectors as well, where we're so fixated on the here and now and just getting to the end of the week and just getting to the end of the month and just getting to the next short-term deadline that we just don't think about kind of the long term until it's too late. And then you're kind of like, oh no, do you know what? Now actually, if 6 months ago I would have started, putting things in place and filing things properly and, I'd have been in a better position today.
Well, you've started that conversation with an accountant perhaps.
Yeah.
With a problem. You started with a problem rather than with the strategy.
Yeah.
And I think that going back to your original question, why don't people do it? Because they're literally looking what's under their nose. They're looking about making it pay now. They don't think bigger picture, strategy, business plan. We've all heard the stats. There's probably 1 in 10 businesses with a business plan.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's that high, to be honest with you.
Yeah. You don't get any startup funding without a business plan now, which is kind of like probably why the stats are slowly creeping back up again, because you're kind of forced to. But yeah, it's that age-old kind of saying, isn't it? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now, right?
Yeah.
So stop putting things off, just get it done. I think it also comes down to then the kind of the understanding that we have as business owners when we first set up and start up about what our accountant can actually do for us. Talking from experience, I went from working in a big corporate and really only ever seeing, the closest thing to having any involvement with the accountants that I would have was if the credit control team rang me to say, this client hasn't paid, you need to help us out here. Or at like a Christmas party where we're doing shots. You know what I mean? Like that's about it. And I remember when we first set up, the very first conversation I had with my accountant post setting up was, so how do I pay myself? Like, when's my payslip? And he's just sort of like, are you stupid? Like, what are you talking about? Like, just go into the bank and transfer the money that you want. And I was like, what? And the reason I was able to be so kind of coy with him was because I knew that he wouldn't judge, right? We had a really good relationship. And I think that's quite important because a lot of people tend not to want to ask stupid questions because you're like, I'm the boss now, I'm running my own business. How can I now go to my accountant and ask them what is probably a really stupid question to them?
But I think you should flip that around actually, because if you're the boss and you've got stupid questions, they're not stupid questions, they're just things you just don't know.
Yeah.
And you're a bit embarrassed by it. But that embarrassment means that you often can't ask other people in your own organisation those questions.
Yeah.
You can't take, counsel off the staff because you've got to be seen as the leader. You've got to be seen as knowing what you're doing. Otherwise, you might spook them and they might disappear.
Yeah.
So who are you going to ask questions of nowadays? And what you find is actually as a small business owner, it can be quite a lonely place if you're not careful. So the people you've got to ask questions of really is the facility are your accountants. In the past, I would have said bank managers, but unless you're a certain size nowadays, it's pretty much online.
Good luck,
Or solicitor, who nowadays they're more transactional. So if you need the lease, they'll be there to help you. If you need T's and C's, they'll be there to help you. But they wouldn't be there for general advice throughout the course of the year.
No.
So the only real place is your accountant.
Yeah.
And that's why most accountants, any good accountants, I work at Prime Accountants Group. Our official name is Prime Accountants and Business Advisors because that's what we do. It's exactly what it says on the tin. But it's those questions from the business owners that we have to be understanding enough, and hopefully we are, that they're not a daft question, they're not a stupid question, they're just something you don't know. And quite frankly, if I was to ask a question of your business, and I often do this as a bit of an icebreaker, I'll ask some of the most silly questions to whatever sector client I'm going to, because I get to know more about them.
But also as well.
Exactly.
There is no dumb question here.
Exactly.
If you don't know something, say it. That's so key, isn't it? Okay, fair. One of the things I want to ask you about there, because you mentioned about outsourcing things like bookkeeping and a lot of transactional accountancy that happens. Your personal opinion, not necessarily the firm that you're representing. How much of a part do you think technology and automation is going to play in getting rid of the kind of donkey work of the work that you guys do?
I think it's going to play a big part going forward. We've already seen it start nowadays. The cloud accounting software packages that came out probably 15 years ago. Xero, I think, is probably one of the better ones. We started using that in 2000 and 2009, I believe. Met the founders when they came over, now multi-billionaires. And they started it really with things like data being brought across from your online banking, so you didn't have to key it in. And then obviously trying to then match things automatically. So real basic AI sort of tools, from 15 years ago. And that was a bit of a game changer. It meant firms like us, traditional firms of accountants that do audits and year-end accounts and business advice and tax, could actually then become competitive and actually offer outsource bookkeeping solutions accordingly. We also at that point brought together technologies, and we were way ahead of the market by having OCR reading of invoices, which would then automatically populate the postings and then save the image. But the reasons that is important wasn't just to make a few quid and do things quicker. It's important for probably 2 or 3 reasons. One, you need accurate data input, because if you don't have accurate data input, you're going to get crap out the other end, and then that's going to impact on all the advice and the quality of the data that you're using to make decisions. But also you need to be timely, and time is really important because we've all got clients on our books as accountants whereby you're doing the final accounts just before a deadline. So 9 months after the year end, you're saying there's your profit loss for the year, that's the tax you've got to pay due next Tuesday. Where's the value in that? This goes back to what I said earlier about the compliance work, doing it for somebody else rather than yourself. So actually you want things to be timely because it's more valuable in terms of what you can do with it. And that's where the computer systems doing things more accurately and quicker help. And the third thing is, going back to recruitment, is there's a shortage of talent out there and a shortage of skills. So actually you do need some solutions, because you speak to any accountant that does a lot of recruitment. I do a lot of our recruitment for Prime, and there is a shortage of people and a shortage of quality there. So actually, if you can solve some problems by having tech take control,
I think it's going to be a big user case for kind of a lot of the market. Exactly what you said, that there is either a candidate shortage or skills shortage in that space, and the tech already. I mean, there's self-serve software you can go and sign up to now that kind of just talks you through everything. Very kind of prompt-based, GPT-based. And it'll ask you a handful of qualifying questions and tell you, okay, this particular expense sits in this sort of pot. We'll file it there, and they'll do your VAT returns for you and your end of year tax returns and that kind of thing. Which, when that first hit the market, I had a conversation with a handful of accountants who were really negative about it. Like, it's going to be wrong, it's going to be inaccurate, there's going to be fines that are generated off the back of this and that kind of thing. And then there was another group of accountants that were kind of like, no, this is great, because what that means is then, rather than the journey for anybody going into the accountancy practice world of being, you got to start off doing the donkey work and the sort of, for lack of a better word, shipment to jobs, until you move to a bit like specialism, and then you can be a bit more advisory. You can almost fast track good people to the advisory role, right? Of kind of being like, look, all the little bits of just moving that there and putting that in the right place and filing everything, that you can use AI and automation to do the bulk of that. And then you can analyse the data and sit down with your client and say, right, Mr. Client, Mrs. Client, this is what the numbers are saying. If this continues to be this way, this is what's going to happen. Here's some what if scenarios. Here's some management accounts and that kind of thing. And so your value proposition changes as an accountancy practice, right?
It certainly does. The advisor bit becomes more relevant, and actually, we talked earlier about businesses that don't take the advisory on; they just only have the compliance side of it, because perhaps it's cost prohibitive. They don't get the value of it. But actually, if the cost of compliance goes down, then actually advisory becomes more affordable, and then actually you'll have more success because you're getting more value from it.
And I suppose selfishly, from your point of view, if you can provide for the same ticket price, if you can advise your clients to make better long-term decisions because they're not either equipped or able to, for whatever reason, to do that currently, you might be able to take a 5-person business to or a 500,000 turnover business to a 5 million turnover business in the space of 3 years, thereby giving you guys more work and therefore more revenue as well. So it kind of makes sense to.
It's the dream. I think you asked the off camera, off mic, if we do a lot of BD work, and I said our best BD actually comes from really satisfied clients, and actually the growth of our current clients, if they get bigger, then we get more work from them, etc. So that does happen. More successful means better for us as advisors. So all of that really helps. I think the really important thing though when it comes to tech and advice is that people don't trust advice from tech.
Yeah.
So actually what they do trust is people, and actually what actually qualifies the tech's advice as being correct or not. It's only ever somebody's expectation and compare the advice to their expectation.
Yeah.
Because if you all the numbers in the computer and it comes out the other end and it says you should do this, and you think, no way am I doing that. That just seems weird. You're not going to do it anyway, are you?
No.
So what you do is you set your expectation.
You say that, but people did used to follow their sat navs and drive into rivers and canals.
Yeah, but those people should not run businesses.
No. Okay. Touche. So some could argue they should also not be driving cars, but they were.
Well, exactly, yeah. And there is a test for that. Unfortunately, there's not actually a test. Should he go into business somewhere? Which I was saying to one of my...
It's retrospective, isn't it? After you've ran it into the ground, that's when they look at you and go, you should never run a business. You'll never run one again. Yeah,
exactly. And I think there should be some sort of entry system for it. But going back to the quality of advice, you need to understand business and you need to understand the markets you're placing. One of the things I teach my trainees all the time is actually they go and do an audit. They prepare a set of accounts. Yeah. So they're the tech in this. It's actually human. Still mainly nowadays, but they can generate something. And it's quite interesting. So I'll sit with them and say, what does this business do? And they look at you like a little bit mad. I've just done the numbers. Well, how do you know if these numbers are right or wrong?
Yeah.
So actually, talking about recruitment, so what am I expecting?
There's got to be, right? Yeah. We had a very similar situation with our bookkeeper, and she was in-house, and we had a point where we had a handful of temps running out, and I think it was something like the payroll would sit at something like 8,000 a week, and then on one week it was like 16 and a bit, and she just paid it. Didn't she? Like, that looks like it reconciles, and sent it off. And then it turned out that the candidates had all been paid twice. Well, of course they have, because if for 5 weeks running it was £8,000, there's not been any more temps go on and any more temps come off. And then all of a sudden there's this anomaly of like, it's gone out and it's almost exactly double. Like, and I was kind of like, surely you could have looked at that and gone, that looks like I've processed this twice. Let me look into this. And her argument was, well, I put it into the spreadsheet and I put it into the thing and it said it was fine and it reconciled, so I sent it. Like, I don't get it. And I was like, am I being unfair here by asking you to really look at the numbers and kind of be like, let me just ring, guys, the payroll's double of what it's been for the last like 5 weeks running. Have you guys doubled the amount of temps that you've sent out? Because that's never happened before. Or have I messed up here? Yeah,
I think you'd see the sales go up as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, you'd think so, right? Yeah, but no, it was just sort of like, oh no, that's what the computer says, so send it. And that's you're right. That's my concern with people using AI and sort of automation software, because it does eliminate the need to think at times, right? Yeah. And you see it in people's sort of the content that they post, and some of the copy that goes out there is sort of like, come on guys, you haven't even read this. You've literally just gone, write me something about this, and you've just posted it. But if you actually then look into kind of how AI works and generative AI and stuff works, there is a sort of a case study around these things called hallucinations, where it will bullshit, and it's done it on a number of occasions where it will give a fictitious answer, and then when you question it, it'll go, yeah, no, that's not correct. I don't know why I said that. It's this. And because it's sort of like they're looking into kind of like, why does it do that? It just, why is it answering every question effectively and then all of a sudden just make something up? Like it's a strange behavioural pattern.
It's probably copying humans though, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is it, right? But it's sort of like, and it's kind of, but I just feel like that kind of issue should be a bit more widespread and widely talked about, because then people won't rely on it so much.
I did like an interview for, I think, AAT, and they was talking about AI. And one of the things I said in it, which really concerned me, was it's about I guess, your liability, your PI side of things that we as accountants are covered by, and we make sure we have all the systems and processes checks to make sure we give good advice. So if you, as a consumer, effectively just plug something into a bit of software and get an answer and rely on that, what happens if that answer's wrong? Who are you going to rely on then?
Who holds the responsibility for that?
And there's just got a vacuum there. It's a bit like go back 20 years and somebody would read an article or go to a library and read a book. If they then do something wrong, they can't sue the library, can they?
No.
Because they've misinterpreted it. And that's where you're going to get a lot of problems, is the misinterpreting of things. Also, you get quite a lot of jargon in any game that any profession that you do, and accountancy's got loads. And the amount of communication that happens because people answer the question they're asked as opposed to working out the question that you really mean and the one you should really be answering. And that happens all the time. And you won't get that filter or that common sense if you're using tech too much.
No, that's true. Yeah. But again, it will free up time. I always say it's a great lab assistant. It's not a scientist.
Perfect. Yeah.
Don't treat it as a scientist. And if you're expecting it to be a scientist, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
But what it absolutely will do is be your lab assistant for you. Yeah. And do all the things that your lab assistant currently does.
Yeah.
Puts the lab assistant out of work, but then the lab assistant can retrain and do something else.
What always makes me chuckle is the amount of people talk about accountancy and what's your impression of an accountant, what's your impression of accountancy, and I probably look like most accountants with the glasses, etc. Bald head, typical middle-aged bloke. But it's such an exciting profession because you're dealing with something that people are so passionate about, generally speaking, the business owners about their companies, etc. They live and breathe. Money, which is so important to everybody. You do all that sort of stuff. But what everybody pictures is sitting at a desk, ledgers, data entry, boring stuff, ticking and reconciling, all that sort of stuff. And you know what? That really is dull. It's important and it has to be done.
That's the crap part of the job.
Yeah. So therefore, if you take the crap part of the job and get that automated as much as possible, then you do the better stuff. Then actually it transforms the profession, transforms the image.
Yeah, then you can send your people out to the businesses to actually, so rather than saying, okay, Bob, looking at these accounts, what do you think this company does, and so on and so forth, you can go, right, well, the AI has done that for you. Go and see them, right? Because fortunately, at the minute, most accountancy practices are still very kind of localized, and in their client base are very local to them. So go and spend half a day with them. Because I can tell you from as a business owner perspective, if I've got my accountant saying, listen, I'm going to send somebody spend half a day with your admin person and with you guys and answer any questions and that kind of thing, we'd be well up for that. Yeah, absolutely. Come. Absolutely. Because that gives us, there are times where we think of something and be like, oh, we should ask the accountant that, and we just don't get around to doing it.
It's a classic business development thing for accountants. Go and spend some time at the client, see what's going on, understand them all, and guess what? You might give away half a day, but you'll end up with a big chunk of work elsewhere because you just spotted a problem and made a sale. Yeah. That is effectively what sales is and business development is in accounts. Spot a problem, solve it, you've got a sale.
Provide a solution, that's it. Yeah.
But the reason people don't do it, they don't have the time.
No.
So therefore, if you've got a solution that gives you more time, then great.
You can build out that. Yeah, that makes sense. So from your perspective then, as an accountant who has a multitude of clients in different sectors, what do you think kind of is the ongoing trend? Is this year going to be just as kind of hard as last year? Should business owners be buckling down? Should they be looking at cost cutting? Should they be looking at roll the dice and go, all guns blazing? Like what do you?
Well, I think 23 was a hard year for some sectors, harder than others, but it wasn't always a terrible year. We're a relatively good base. 22 was stellar for a lot of people. 21 and 20 there was the COVID thing, but actually most people, their results were status quo. They didn't lose money unless you were particularly badly affected. Some actually did better. And we've had a number of good years before COVID. So I think we've been at quite a high base. But what we're finding now is business is harder, and we're not getting good growth or good results. I think is what I'd say for most sectors. But you can still make good money. But you've just got to do the good things well and stop doing the bad things. and actually have a bit of strategy, have a bit of, now's a time to think about how do you run your business better. So not necessarily go for the big ticket master plans and reinventing the wheel, but run your business better. Because if you look internally, go up in that helicopter, look down and think, okay, where's our areas of pain? Where's the things that we know we can improve on, and actually do something about it? You'll transform your results.
Yeah. I completely second that. I keep pushing at the minute. Again, half the reason RecTools as a platform exists is exactly that. Because yes, you can go out and try and win more business and try and earn more money. You can also look at what you're already spending out on and kind of be like, right, where can we save and cut costs here? Where are the cost saving? Is it in our invoice financing facility? Is it in restructuring some of our debt? Is it in making more intelligent decisions with things like how we deal with our tax and so on and so forth? And I suppose that's where that relationship piece with your accountant really comes in.
Yeah, I think there's all sorts of areas that you can always just fine tune. But you fine tune it in a number of different areas. The
marginal gains.
Exactly. I think you're quite right with. Tell you what, because 22 was such a hard year from staffing wise. There was that great big, was it called the Great Resignation?
Yes. Yeah.
And lots of people left. And then you had to go and hire. Probably hired people at a little bit more expensive rates than you probably would have wanted to. Then in 23 you were stuck with them, and in 23 inflation kicked on and nobody moved and all that sort of stuff. What you see a lot of businesses did was they kept a staffing level that was probably a little bit too high. Because they were suffering from PTSD from 22, quite frankly.
Not having enough.
Exactly. And you keep that too high, it's going to hit your margins and hit your cash flow. So that's the one area I think people will probably not as in take great decisions like redundancies, etc. But they'll probably just let people
put people in the right places. It's a really interesting time because you've got a lot of people who have given up on the pursuit of wealth and are more fussed about the pursuit of time, right? Because that's more valuable than the money. And so I think for a lot of business, and a lot of the guys that I spend a lot of time doing kind of mentor work with and stuff, is I always say, look, in your one-to-ones, really drill down, right? Because I think you'd be really surprised how many of your staff, if you said to them, would you go part-time? Would you want to go part-time? Would that help you? How many of them would be like, I'd take a pay cut to have an extra day a week to spend with my kids or to spend in the house or do whatever I want to do. And during the sort of toughest time in the recruitment business, we did exactly that. We offered it out to people. Guys, we need to cut costs and so on. Is there anybody who wants to go down 4 days a week? And you'd be pro rata on your salary, but that's kind of how it is. And we did have people volunteer for that because for them it was kind of like, we had a handful go, actually, do you know what? Can I start at 9:30? Because then I'm going to rush around in the mornings. I can drop the kids in and get in early and all the rest of it. And those little changes made a massive difference to us because that extra half an hour made no difference at all in the grand scale of things. Because if that consultant needed to make a phone call, he or she was making a phone call in the car. But it helped them relax and not have to rush around in the morning. And those marginal differences, we saw it on the P&L. Like, oh, okay, look now, that's made a big difference. And so, I think it's a really key point there is don't go, we need to make redundancies. Just ask your guys, how many of you want your time? How many of you value the time over the money? And if I was to offer you that, would you take it? I think that would probably turn the tide for businesses that are maybe feeling the pinch now. But that's interesting.
The other area is to get more out of your people, even if you think the market isn't quite there to support it. So you've got more capacity than there is demand. Well, people can often do different things. So you can actually, is that a good opportunity to get into a new market? Was you might even research it, do the business plans for it, etc., and actually just reallocate that resource into a different direction. The most successful businesses, the most resilient businesses, are the ones that change. They change quickly and they change in the right direction. And sometimes you have to make a decision to exit something quite quickly because you've got it wrong. But that change is really effective. So one of the things we're doing as a business is actually investing quite a lot of time and effort and resource using third-party support in people management. Because actually people management is something that most businesses don't put any time or effort into. And you think about people management, and people often think it's about how you manage your employees, but it's not. It's about how you manage all of your
as well, right?
all of your relationships with your suppliers,
Yeah.
your customers, as well
yeah.
as internal team. And actually, if you can get that more slick and quick and etc. And more efficient, you actually might get more sales. You might get more business. So improving the quality and effectiveness of the team can actually transform the business as well.
No, So that's a really key point. Really key point. Okay. Well, any final thoughts? Anything you think that business owners need to be doing more of, less of, kind of in general, things that you've seen that are maybe bad practice?
Oh, good question. I think more planning.
Yeah.
More thinking about our strategy, the way forward, the best way to operate. I think it's that reflection. I don't think you need the big ticket knee-jerk reactions. So we'll invest in that new machine because we've got to do something, or we'll do a big advertising campaign without understanding what it means or what you're trying to achieve from it. Actually, go back to first principles and think to ourselves, what are we trying to achieve as a business? But also the business owners, what they're trying to achieve from that business. Because likewise, there's no point in doubling the size of the business if you want to halve your hours.
No, it's very true. Yeah, I think it's called the why, isn't it? Right? What's your why? Yeah, and kind of be true to that. Yeah, I'm noticing a lot more of a need or a requirement for people to take at least a day in their month to focus on just their business, not as in like the strategy, the thinking, the long-term stuff. Take a day away from the tools, drop everything, not drop everything, but kind of leave the people who you've got doing the do in charge and go and spend a day, whether it's with your accountant, whether it's with a business mentor, a Ned, or, a fellow business owner. Go and sit down and really dedicate that time to think about, right, where are things now? Let me be really honest with myself. Where are the bits that we're not doing so great on? What are the things that we're doing really well on? Why is that working? Why is that not working? And how do I kind of change this? Because I think, certainly in recruitment, as business owners, we spend so long in the weeds. Because we enjoy it, right? 10 years ago, your most successful clients in recruitment, 10 years ago, they were recruitment consultants. They didn't go through this coaching and development to become business owners and then make the jump. So our go-to instinct is to be like, right, I'll do it myself. Like, you know what I mean? So, it's interesting. No, this has been really insightful. Thank you. I really appreciate your time today. This has been really good. If any of the listeners want to reach out to you and kind of look at moving accountancy practices or inquire about that to Prime, how do they do that?
Our website's www.primeaccountants.co.uk. You can get hold of us through all the contact and the channels there. We'd love to speak to you and see how we can help.
Amazing. Brilliant. Well, guys, thank you very much for those who are still listening, for tuning into another episode of RecTalk. Feedback is always welcome, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That was good.
Excellent.
That was,
Cheers.